Take two. Mio on MMA recap of the Corey Sandhagan versus Yadong Song fight card that happened yesterday. Pretty good fight card, actually. Not without its low points. Tanner Boser versus Rodrigo Nationalmento. Not great. Typical heavyweight fight, honestly. And then the Luis Koshi and Trevin Giles fights and the Daniel Zellhuber Trey Ogden fights are best avoided on a rewatch. They were not very good, but we got a very, very good main event. We got a amazing co-main event. We got a pretty good fight between Andre Fili and Bill Algio, and we got some cool finishes. Joe Pfeiffer. I don't know why I have such a hard time with that name. Nicholas Mata. And I want to say there was Damon Jackson. Which was a humongously feel-good knockout. And then not knockout. We'll go more into that, but I think Sabatini tapped, but maybe not. And really a kind of a star-making performance out of Anthony Hernandez. Not Alex Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez. Who kind of did some things we've never seen done to Marc-Andre Barrio, which is really cool. And also got to see Maria Agapova lose. That's never going to get old. Like, the problem with Agapova, I'll go more in detail, maybe later on, is that she just appears to be a really unstable person. If any of it is true. But anyways. Jose Aldo also has apparently left the UFC. Has retired. Whatever that means. Because, of course, this is MMA and a retirement can never be taken at face value. It does make that last fight he had with Merab Dvalishvili feel that much crappier. Because it was a fight that just on a stylistic level, you could never guarantee that a fight is going to be good. Like, we may use guaranteed banger, guaranteed action fight, whatever. We may throw that out there. But, in truth, any fight can be boring, can be disappointing, can be anticlimactic. Doesn't matter who you're booking. Doesn't matter what fighter we're talking about. But the upside of the Aldo versus Dvalishvili fight was exceedingly low. And then they added in high altitude into that. And we got a really unimpressive fight. And that may, in fact, be the last competitive effort we see from Jose Aldo. That is kind of sad. Let's get into the fight card here. Corey Sandhagan, Yadong Song, 4th round, technically. Doctor stoppage due to a cut. Cut was sustained in the 2nd round of the fight. The doctor let it go on for a fairly long time. Called it when Song couldn't see. I had it 2 rounds apiece. Some people had it 3-1 Sandhagan. I think both scores are perfectly fine. I gave the first 2 rounds to Song and the 3rd and the 4th to Sandhagan. And essentially what this was is that Yadong Song, for all of his physical gifts, the amazing power, the amazing explosiveness, the speed, does not necessarily have great footwork or an ability to draw an opponent into prolonged pocket exchanges, which is where he is incredible. This is not normally a problem because normally he has a reach advantage on his opponent. Normally he's against an opponent that doesn't necessarily have the ability to deny him the pocket for any significant length of time, but Sandhagan was able to do that. He had trouble early, and that's why he lost the first 2 rounds on my card. but it was kind of a case where Sandhagan more or less saw what Song was trying to do, the traps he was trying to bring in, the entries to the pocket, the initiations that he was comfortable with and wanted to utilize, and was slowly nullifying them, slowly building momentum, slowly making his creativity, his diversity of striking tactics, his superior footwork, his reach, well, that's really about it, really. I think that pretty much covers it, because he was also trying to use wrestling to disrupt Song's striking, which I think did an excellent job. Now, I will say, it wasn't successful as a wrestling attack. It wasn't successful as an offensive component, but it was successful as a defensive component because it threw off Song's timing and Song's footwork and Song's offense. It's kind of interesting, using takedown shots as a way to just kind of pause the fight and get your bearings and come up with your solutions. Not necessarily an original idea, but one we don't see a lot of. Normally people shoot for takedowns kind of wanting them. I'm not saying Sandhagan didn't want the takedowns, just that they functioned without functioning. I think Sandhagan would have won the 5th round, so I think he would have taken this decision. And again, he was up 3-1 on one judge's scorecard, and a lot of Twitter and journalists and so on had the fight 3-1 already for Sandhagan, which would be enough. He outlanded Song in all 3 rounds. UFC Official Stats. I don't necessarily trust these numbers, but they're the numbers we have. 19-14 in 6 strikes, 21-15 in 6 strikes, 29-13 in 6 strikes, and 25-12 in 6 strikes. So you can see, generally speaking, it was going up and up and up. And the exception being the 4th round, where Sandhagan did actually get a takedown, managed to utilize some top control time, which stopped the 6 strikes. And the total strikes 30-23. Song did apparently land more in the 2nd round. Is that the round? That's weird. That might be a round to go back and look at again. It's weird that he outlanded on total strikes. But that was the only time that happened. 6 total strikes favored Sandhagan in the 1st, in the 3rd, and the 4th. So, where do these two guys go next? I mean, it was a great fight. I don't think anyone loses any stock off this. I think Song took a step up. Looked like he was ready for that step up, in the sense that he gave a competitive fight. At no point was he put out of this fight. At no point was Sandhagan just cruising. And at the same time, the best opponent I could find for him, looking at the rankings and trying to figure out appropriate matchups and all that, is Adrian Yanez, which is a fantastic fight, but it's not necessarily one that really has to be made, or that honestly gives Song anything really to work with, because Yanez is below him, and after a loss, you would generally go there, but like, it's definitely a fight where Yanez stands to gain a lot more than Song. And Corey Sandhagan called out Cheeto Vera after the fight, and Merab Dvalishvili. Please give him Cheeto. Please do not give him Merab, because everything I said about Merab versus Aldo, to a degree, applies to Sandhagan versus Merab. And it also feels like just Merab should be like on the title path. And with Sandhagan having lost to Peter Yan and, air quotes, lost to TJ Dillashaw, and having lost to Aljamain Sterling, he's kind of really not on that path. He's kind of on the high-level action path. And, Vera fits that bill way more. Chidi Njokuani versus Gregory Rodriguez. So, on one hand, this was the fight that I feared when I was picking Chidi, is that Rodriguez would get him down, would work ground game, and eventually he pounded him out in the second round. But at the same time, that first round, absolutely what I thought Chidi was going to be able to do. He caught him with a knee on the way in for a takedown attempt. He managed to scramble back up. He busted Rodriguez open incredibly badly. That was a third eye that Rodriguez had above his nose. Like, that was insane. It was a really bad cut, and I'm a little surprised that the doctor let it go. There was a late knockdown for Rodriguez, and he made that first round very competitive towards the end. But like, I have a rule, I guess, and that is that Chidi won the round because we might have been able to see Rodriguez's skull. And that's pretty much all there is to that. So I scored a 10-9 Chidi. Interesting note here. They claim that these two are the same height. There is no way Rodriguez is not short. None whatsoever. Just the beginning of the round where you got them standing sort of with the cage in the background as an example. And Chidi's like head and a good chunk of his neck are above the cage or the fence. And Rodriguez is not. So I will never fully understand why the UFC can't get height measurements correct. But hey, here we are. Round 2, like I said, I don't know. I don't know what it was, if Chidi broke or Chidi got tired or whatever it is. I honestly don't know. But Rodriguez was able to just stalk him down and start hurting him quite badly to the body. Get that takedown, get top position, and just drop elbows and ground and pound. And the referee stepped in. Hell of a comeback for Gregory Rodriguez. This was a war. This was everything you want. Did this win fight of the night? I guess that is my immediate question. I should have looked at the fight of the nights beforehand. I would assume it has to be this or the Sandhagan fight. It has to be one of the top 2 fights on the card. Yeah, this got fight of the night and performance of the night to Pyfer and Jackson, which I can't. I'm exceedingly mixed on Pyfer's, but at the same time, let it roll. This was a kind of depressing card when it came to like some of the post fight speeches. I will say that we'll be getting into that with the Andre Fili fight that's coming up. So yeah, Chidi was doing what he was supposed to do. Ended up kind of breaking, and I mean, I have no thoughts that Chidi is a title contender or anything like that. I think he's too willing to let the opponent define the fight, and like it's the same for Rodriguez. Like, they're both just high-level action fighters. And for Rodriguez, I've got the winner of Yakko versus Bren Allen, which is not an amazing fight, but it was kind of like the thing that I saw coming up that like fits best. And for Chidi, the loser of Caio Bahayo versus Mahmoud Muradov. Hopefully Muradov, because I think Muradov versus Chidi is actually an amazing fight. I wouldn't say Chidi versus Bahayo is a bad fight. It's actually kind of similar to this one. But it could potentially be, because Bahayo does not mind being boring. And you can see the differences in the fight with Gregory Rodriguez and Armen Petrosyan versus the Petrosyan versus Bahayo fight, for like how those two compare. Andre Fili and Bill Algio came out with like a lot of kind of weird movement going on in this fight. At the end of the day, I think this fight kind of encapsulates what I think about Bill Algio just in general. He's not terribly powerful. It's what it comes down to. I gave him the second round pretty easily, but I did score the first for Fili. And this is a case where, like, looking at the fight stats, Feely got outlanded 30-19, didn't have a takedown, but I still gave it to him. And essentially, what this came up to is that, like, every time Feely hit Algio, whether it was with a head kick or the good stiff jab or a right straight or a hook, everything right to the jaw. Give myself a little punch. And it really hurt him. It snapped the head back. It clearly visually made a difference. And in this damage-oriented scoring criteria, that had to go to Feely. I'm assuming, because this went to a split, that a judge scored that round for Algio. Let's have a look at the scorecard here. Feely versus Algios. So it was Judge Chris Lee gave the third to Algio. I could have gotten behind the first round. I could have seen the logic because Algio was landing a lot and Feely wasn't throwing that much and wasn't really finding his range at the time. He went 19 for 56 in that round, so 33% as opposed to 47 and 44 later on. I don't know. I can't. No. Like, if you're going to give a round to Feely, it's got to be the third round because Feely took him down, took his back. Had his back for, like, almost the entire round. Now, I will critique Feely's performance in the third round. And that is, he kept going for the rear naked choke and letting Algio punch him over his shoulder, when he probably should have just given up on the rear naked choke and dropped elbows. Like, just, punch. Just punch. Just give Algio something to think about so that he's not punching you, sort of thing. Because Algio is a super tough guy to submit. He's got great hand fighting ability. Everything he lacks in physicality, he makes up for in just, like, hustle and being difficult to put away. The only technical aspect of Algio's game that is, like, kind of shit is Algio's head movement, in the sense that there isn't any. So yeah, the split decision went to Feely. I think Feely should have got. I don't mind the split, but, like, again, I don't like the card that went Algio's way. It's interesting because I would have thought it'd be the first round. Yeah, Feely gets the split. Talks in the post fight about how he lost a kid. There was a miscarriage, apparently. I haven't dug into super details. So if you want to know, I leave that in your hands. But obviously, that combined with, like, the Damon Jackson and the Joe Pyfer stuff, it's feel good in the sense that the guys who have had the rotten luck and are downtrodden got the wins. But it is a sobering aspect of things. For next matchups, I've got Andre Feely versus Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres, because I don't really know how that fight has not happened. And I've got Bill Algio versus Billy Q. I'm going to call for that every single time he fights because I want those two to fight. Because I think it would be amazing. Watch it happen and then be terrible. But that's the fight I want. It's the fight I desire. I think it was booked at one point. I think it was booked. Hang on. Bill Algio, Billy Quarantillo. Was it? Yes, it was. It was supposed to be back in July 16th. And he withdrew and we got Herbert Burns versus Algio instead. Which was still a cool fight, but, like, give me the Battle of the Bills, damn it. Joe Pyfer knocked out Alan Amedovski. There's not really anything else to say about the fight. Alan Amedovski does not belong in the UFC. Probably never did. Like, I understand he came in with an undefeated record and everything, but honestly, probably never did. And I'm not honestly 100% certain that Joe Pyfer does. I understand that a lot of people had him winning against Dustin Stolfus on the Contender Series, the Dana White Contender Series. But having a competitive matchup with Dustin Stolfus still doesn't convince me much because Stolfus is, well, the UFC boat has sailed on him. For Pyfer, I kind of came up with the idea of Abus Magomedov. That could be fun. That could be interesting. And Amadovsky just gets cut. And of course, with Pyfer, there's the whole homeless story and so on. And the one thing I dislike about this whole, I dislike a lot about the story, obviously. Living in America, like, a story like Joe Pyfer should not be a thing. There's that. But on top of that, there's the fact that, of course, everyone's going to use this because Dana White apparently provided him with a place to live and helped him out. And here's the thing. That's a cool thing for Dana White to do. It's a humanitarian thing for him to do. That's a very compassionate thing, a very human thing. Dana White is capable of doing good things. But on top of that is the fact that Dana White also has gotten obscenely rich from a sport that is incredibly exploitative of athletes. And just a thought here, but if the UFC had a higher standard of pay, maybe, just maybe, the fighters would be able to take care of themselves a little bit more. And the gyms would sort of be able to help out these struggling young fighters with the assumption that they're going to make reasonable money down the road, or that they may, and that their humanitarian efforts are worth something. Just saying. And people will use this to defend fighter pay that, like, again, no. Like, Dana White, this totally balances the scales. It does not. It's a cool thing he did for Joe Pyfer. It's awesome. But even if he did this for a dozen fighters, it doesn't balance the scales. There you go. Tanner Boser versus Rodrigo Nationalmento was a fight. I scored the first and the third round for Nationalmento. Essentially because of top control, top position. Not because of control. Not because of, like, be on top, win the fight sort of thing. But because he got him down. He would hit him enough. He would do enough damage that it would define the round via the grappling. Boser was held down for, like, half of both those rounds. And the round where he didn't, I gave it to Boser. Because despite a really bad first minute of the second round, where he was throwing naked kicks and getting countered repetitively, and I don't know why they thought the whole kicking game was a good idea, because Boser's best moments in this fight was when he limited his game to just boxing, because it allowed him to keep his footwork up and stay out of trouble. Every time he started trying to work the kicks in was when Nationalmento would get in close and get takedowns. Additionally, he got stunned in the first round. So anyways, he came on real strong at the end, that last 30 seconds when the ref stood him up. He went for broke. I appreciate that. There was a fighter earlier in the card, a couple of fighters earlier in the card, that did not go for broke. And I'll roast them for that. I will say Boser, outside of the kicking stuff, fought a good fight, but he lost. And I'm intrigued. What did the judge who scored it for him give him? So Adelaide Bird had my score. Ugh. That's a shiver down my spine. I agree with Adelaide Bird. Douglas Crosby gave the first and the second to Boser. Nah, I really can't get behind that. Got held down too much and got hurt. He got hurt in the first round by Nationalmento. So it's not even like, well, he had it all his way on the feet, because he didn't. And then Jamiro Camijo, who scored at 30-27 for Nationalmento. Camijo's been a bad judge for a long time. Like, can we just get him out of there? That would be ideal. What were the UFC stats? I'm always intrigued by the box score when it goes the distance here. So let's see here. Boser outlanded him in the first round, but was taken down, was hurt. Second round I gave to him without reservation. He did land slightly more in the third round. I don't know. Looking at the numbers, maybe I need to rewatch the first round. Maybe there's a scorecard for Boser in there. But the 30-27, no. That's a bad card. It's a bad card no matter how you look at it. Next fights. I don't really care for either of these guys because heavyweight is like this place where like the top of the division's cool and there could be some good action fights, but I'm not really big on like watching the fights. Nationalmento versus Martin Budai. Tanner Boser versus Jake Collier. And of course, this is my weight class, so like, you know, I'm hating on my own brothers and my brothers in Pudge. But although, you know what, Boser Collier is actually has the potential to be a really good fun fight. I hope they make it. Anthony Hernandez came out and shocked the world. Finished Marc-Andre Barrio in the third round with an arm triangle. And like I picked him to win this fight. I thought he had physical advantages that would translate to victory, but I didn't expect this. He came out there and he put Barrio right on the back foot, working for the takedowns. Literally picked him up in like side control and dropped him. Like it spiked him on his head at one point. Actually damaged the canvas. This was a great performance from Anthony Hernandez. The question becomes, is that just that Marc-Andre Barrio is a relatively simple fighter and a guy who is like just kind of fine athletically outside of having a really deep cardio? I don't know. So like, but I'm excited to see it going forward. And I put him up here against the winner of Roman Dolidze and Phil Haas. And for Barrio, I would love to see him fight Puna Soriano. I think that would be a great action fight. Kind of meaningless because I don't think either guy is like going to compete for a title or anything. But they're both fun fighters. Let them fight each other. So there you go. And after the post-fight interview was cool. Hernandez swearing a ton and apologizing for it, and then just swearing again. Damon Jackson, Pat Sabatini. The two things going into this fight that were, well, one was interesting, one is just sad. Jackson's brother passed away. He donned the Action Jackson nickname in his honor. His brother was only 37 years old. I don't think they revealed, and if they did, I missed it, and I apologize as to what he passed away from, but obviously that is tragic. His mom was there. He had lost a sister before, I think, so like Damon Jackson's had a rough life, and that is why I will pretty much always cheer for him, even if I'm not picking for him. And he went out here. Oh, and in Pat Sabatini's case, where is the mega prospect thing coming for Sabatini? That's kind of the weird thing for me because, don't get me wrong, I think Pat Sabatini can be a perfectly fine fighter. Honestly. He's got some good physicality. He's got some good scrambling, grappling. Like, there are things here to be interested about. But, like, beating TJ Laramie, Tucker Lutz, Jamal Emmers, and Tristan Connolly, let's hit the brakes a little. Let's pump the brakes on like calling him a mega prospect and stuff. And he's 31 years old. Again, not ancient for the earth, and certainly not old for even particularly old for combat sports. But it is sort of a final product by 31. Like there will be some minor improvements, but Sabatini is the fighter he's going to be going forward. And that fighter is eating a front kick to the jaw, getting ground and pounded, and possibly verbally tapping out or the referee stopping the fight. Like, there you go. Jackson was classy after the fight. Seriously, nothing but the best for Damon, I assume he's going to go back to the Leech Jackson. But there you go. For next fights, I got him against Julian Erosa. Just kind of a fun journeyman fight. Two guys that have made way more of themselves than I think anyone expected them to. Put on exciting fights. Put on interesting fights. And I think we'll make the other one fight in a way that their previously unimpressive fights, like Argueta in the case of Jackson and Hakeem Dawodu in the case of Erosa, will not allow them to go. And Pat Sabatini was booked against Gavin Tucker before. Why not go back to that fight? I still think it's an interesting fight. I'm always game to see Gavin Tucker fight. Trevin Giles and Luz Koshy. This was bad. I scored the first 2 rounds for Giles. What was the final decision here? Was it unanimous? They gave it unanimously. It was not good. You do not need to go watch it. And that is really kind of all I have to say about it. It was just low, it was super low pace. It was a fight with 35 SIG strikes landed. And like Koshy, after being told he was down 2-0, comes out and fights his best round in the third. Like he won the third, but like with no presence or pressure to get a finish. I am not high on either of the Koshy brothers. I think in Lewis's case, he's overcompensating for gassing out against Sasha Platnikov. And I just, it was not good. It was not good. And with Trevin Giles, he still has terrible defensive habits that rely on a slickness that is not there. Giles versus Mike Malott and Koshy versus Darian Weeks. I have nothing else to say. Luma Luke Boumé versus Denise Gomes or Denise Gomes. Interesting fight in the sense that I will give Gomes credit that she pursued a grappling game and tried to show off, tried to exploit what has worked against Luma Luke Boumé in the past. The problem is she just didn't have the ability. Like a recurring theme of this fight would be Gomes initiating the clinch, looking for a takedown, and ending up on her back. And if Loma was a better grappler, this probably would have been really boring. But because Loma does not have great top control, she ended up with having her back taken, being frozen by a heel hook, and just not really knowing what to do. Getting caught with an armbar and a triangle, but Gomez is also, or Gomes, I think it's Gomes, is also not an amazing fighter. And we actually had the incredibly rare wardrobe change for the third round where they took off Loma's rash guard. I scored all 3 rounds for Loma. I want to say she outlanded her in all 3 rounds. Can confirm. Both in SIG strikes and in total strikes outlanded her. Had more control time in all but the third round, too. So, yeah. I assume the judge that gave Gomes a round gave her the third. Am I right on that? I am. Okay, so nothing to write home about the judges here. Michael Bell, Sal D'Amato gave all 3, and Derek Cleary gave the third. Yeah, okay. It's fine. Loma versus the winner of Pierre Rodriguez and Sam Hughes. Gomes versus Yasmin Lucindo. Because Lucindo will probably be someone Gomes tries to strike with. And we'll see what that is. like arguably this could have actually been a way more impressive fight had they stood and banged, but it would have been a loss for Gomes that way. So like I will applaud someone trying to have a game plan to deal with an opponent and try to make it work. And that's why I will applaud Trey Ogden for his win over Daniel Zellhuber. I scored all 3 rounds for Ogden. He derailed Zellhuber's hype train. Zellhuber looked gun shy, low output. I don't think this fight had as few significant strikes as the as the Giles fight, and it really didn't, because apparently there were 71 6 strikes to 52 landed. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. This felt like a prolonged sparring session. Zellhuber is not done by any means off of this, but for what realistically was supposed to be a hype fight, a showcase fight to get him rolling, it didn't do that. And hopefully he takes some lessons from it and learns. The interesting thing with Ogden is he was like bitching about Jordan Leavitt not really fighting him. Like that he felt like, I just got paid to have a sparring session, and Leavitt's an expert in like fighting without fighting. He kind of did something very similar here. Ogden versus Manuel Torres, and Zellhuber versus the loser of Joaquin Silva and Jesse Ronson in the fight of 2 dudes who are still on the UFC roster, and I'm a little bit surprised. Maria Agapova versus Jillian Robertson. I picked Agapova in this fight, but this was the fight that I was like realistically hoping I would get wrong, because Agapova is just, by all accounts, not a pleasant person. Like, we're talking like the sort of stalking, threatening, sexually aggressive, unpleasant type of fighter. She's an absolute beast, super strong, super physical. There is, I think I wrote in my notes here. Where's the line? Where is the line? I might have put it on Twitter. It was something in regards of like, there is a really, really, really good fighter in the Maria Agapova slate of marble. We just haven't found it. It hasn't been formed from it. It hasn't been chiseled out. It hasn't been sculpted. And this fight was like a perfect example of this, where stand-up wise, she was having her way with Robertson. Robertson was going constantly for the takedown, doing her best. Robertson was punishing her constantly with elbows, like kind of Travis Brown style takedown defense. And then eventually, in the second round, after the doctor was okay with Robertson continuing, and Mark Smith was talking about how she needed to defend herself and also warning Agapova for cage grabs, because she does that, Robertson just through sheer determination gets her down, starts looking for like an arm bar, maybe a mount, goes for the arm triangle, can't get it, gets the back, gets the rear naked choke. Agapova spits out her mouthpiece. She's biting her tongue. It's kind of gruesome looking, and it's like, it's all the like not having any kind of actual understanding of grappling. Like white belt mistakes when defending a rear naked choke. Don't get me wrong, Robertson deserves all the credit here for like showing toughness and going for it and bringing it to her. But this is the second time, I think, in a row where she's... Is it in a row? Was her last fight the Priscilla Cachoeira fight? No, it wasn't. She had a loss to JJ. Okay. So her last 2 wins, Agapova and Cachoeira, it's both rear naked chokes against girls who, I don't know if they know how to defend rear naked chokes. Because like Cachoeira's idea was like to eye gouge, and Agapova's was like to just try to like tough it out. It's whatever. Like, I don't know. Maybe everything that's been reported about Agapova is like wrong, but like she just seems like a dumb fighter. She seems like a meathead fighter. Anyways, Jillian Robertson was supposed to fight Melissa Gatto before this. I would be down to see that fight again because Gatto has bad takedown defense and Robertson is persistent with takedowns, and it would be a chance for Robertson to perhaps show a little bit more of what she showed here today without getting like beaten up quite as badly. And for Gatto, it's a chance to work on her massive weakness, which is the takedown defense. For Agapova, I put Sarge Eubanks in here. Now, to be clear, I don't think Sarge Eubanks should be trying to make flyweight. That's just my opinion of like how she's looked cutting weight, essentially. But as far as I am aware, she's still going to be trying to do it. Like she fought her last 2 fights at flyweight against Melissa Gatto and against Elise Reed, and was booked against Marina Moroz twice, who is a flyweight and shouldn't be fighting at bantamweight. So if she's going to be a flyweight, we might as well put her in there with Agapova and see if which one of them is more powerful physically, because that's the best part of both of their games. It's, 2 bulls in a china shop sort of thing. Javid Basharat put up a good performance against Tony Gravely. I thought it was very, very good. I thought he looked excellent. He showed incredibly improved wrestling, or not necessarily improved wrestling, but wrestling that we didn't know about. Took an NCAA wrestler, Division I, and frankly out wrestled him and outstruck him and did his thing. Gravely had a good first round, super tight first round. I did score it for him. But like the problem with Gravely is, to call back to the main event with Yadong Song, he runs out of ideas. There's only a certain number of things he actually knows how to do as a striker and as a wrestler. He only has a certain number of entrances. There you go. Why am I blanking on that word? Only a certain number of entrances to try to make his offense work. Basharat figured them out, started picking them off, and did his thing. He looks legitimately like a really impressive prospect. I got him against Davey Grant next. And for Gravely, the loser of Julio Arce, Montel Jackson, 2 kind of stalled prospects to a certain degree to possibly work with. And Nicholas Mata knocked out Cameron Van Camp. Van Camp will still be around, and I said put him against Zhu Rong if Zhu Rong is still around. And for Mata, I've got Mahashete as his next opponent. And essentially this just boiled down to like Van Camp. He's tall, he's got the physicality, he's fairly quick. He apparently has a good wrestling background, although I've never been impressed with his wrestling. But dude just hangs his chin out there to get banged on. And it got him knocked out here, and it'll probably get him knocked out again. Seems like a simple fix, honestly, but some fighters never do. How were my picks on this card? So I got Sandhagan right. I've got Feely. I got Pfeiffer. I got Hernandez. I got Giles, Loma, Basharat, and Mata. So that's like, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 and 5. Not a bad pick day. And even on the fights that I got wrong, like Agapova versus Robertson, I think I largely got the idea right. I underestimated how hard Robertson would go in the paint to try to get that win. And I feel like I also got the dynamic of the Chidi Kwame Gregory Rodriguez fight really correctly. So, hey, not a bad day's work for me. Thursday, we'll be doing the preview. No, we won't. We won't, because there's no fight card this next week. We get a break. So, I'll still probably do an episode. Do like a viewer's question episode. And take questions from the Discord. So, hey, check out the Discord. Get in there. Put in some questions. And I'll also open up Twitter. Although, I think I got like 1 question last time through Twitter. So, probably somewhat limited. As per usual, the link tree is down below or to the side or above or to the other side, wherever it happens to be on the podcast platform of your choice. Check it out. We got the Slam Ball Season 2 starting up at the Sim, and of course we got Simulated Combat Action. I will talk to you guys on Thursday.